Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us to watch this incredible masterpiece of a film. We're going to start with the Q&A and then we'll move on to audience questions. My name is Fatima Serghini. I'm a London playwright and dramaturg, and it is my pleasure today, an honour, huge honour, to be sat here today with writer-director and the cast of Unbecoming Guinea Fowl. I'd like to introduce Rungano. Sorry, I'm saying it wrong already.
No, don't. Just...
Rungano Nyoni, Susan Chardy and Elizabeth Chisela. Thank you so much for being with us this evening. One round of applause for these guys. We'll just jump in. So we'll start with you. Unbecoming Guinea Fowl explores profound and nuanced themes. I'm fascinated to know, and can you talk more about how you came to the idea?
Yeah, so apparently I've had the idea when I was doing my first films, because when I was in Cannes, I screened it. My producer, my French producer who produced I'm Not a Witch, co-produced, told me that reminded me that I had the idea when I was watching I'm Not a Witch. There was a draft where this character existed, and then she advised me not to make into a separate film, because it was sort of taking away the storyline of I'm Not a Witch, something like this. So I couldn't remember that, but so it's probably been around trying to be Britain somehow. And then when I was during a funeral, it was my grandmother's funeral, I wrote the script somehow. I think it was just it was going over 4 days, and then I don't know if we'd buried her before or after, but I woke up in the middle of the night. I couldn't sleep, and then I just started writing out. It wasn't even an idea. I didn't know what it was. I thought it was a dream, because sometimes I do that, write out my dreams. I thought it was a dream, then it's turned into a story, I think. And then, it was just pages and pages and pages, and I was done, I think, about a couple of hours later. So it was the bones of the film.
How many pages was it? The bones of the play of the dream?
It was quite a few. I really can't remember. It was handwritten and it was like big, chunky, so I can't remember. It was quite a few pages. Yeah, can't remember.
That's incredible. I think that's every writer's dream, to wake up with an idea and to have the bones ready. I'm definitely envious of that. This is your second feature in Zambia, following the success of I'm Not a Witch, which I'm a huge fan of. It's a stunning film. In my research, in your first feature film, I'm Not a Witch, that you talk about there wasn't much of an infrastructure in terms of filming and setting up for production, and there was a whole other production in terms of getting camera equipment in and getting different members of the team, creative and crew. How was it shooting in Zambia the second time?
Pretty similar, because we still don't have, there was one guy in the end we found that had an Arri Alexa. I think the infrastructure, what I meant is probably in comparison to Britain, there's not a lot if you compare how long and established the film industry is. So we don't have there's not rental houses, there are people who rent the equipment. So we still had to bring the equipment from South Africa, but it's also Panavision. There's no Panavision in Zambia, close to South Africa. So we had to bring in, lug that stuff in. But this time we had less people. Well, the idea was to have less people, outsiders sort of coming in. We still had a few, but the great thing is we had more Zambian head of departments this time, which I was really excited about. And then so makeup and costume were Zambian. And so that was kind of a progress. But yeah, it's pretty much similar as I'm Not a Witch, I think. Yeah. But I don't know, we had in the end quite a few Zambians, I think, on our crew, definitely more than last time. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's fantastic you got them to be the head of department, because I understand I'm Not a Witch, it was British heads of department, is that correct?
Yeah, I think it was also to do with the finance, though. So if you get your finance from Britain, usually they insist that you use British HODs. So this time the structure was a little bit different, so we could pick from different sources. So yeah, so it's partly to do with that also. So, but still, it's still a bit of a fight because I think here you have a very different system of equating who's sort of can get those roles. So I think, so it's always an IMDb. They always look at IMDb, and a lot of them don't put their work on IMDb. They just don't think to do it, and they've got bags of experience. So it's having to prove their work in a different way. But I think, it's still a challenge, I think, yeah.
And congratulations for achieving. How many days were you shooting for in Zambia for your second film?
Was it 36? I feel like it was 36. 36 days, yeah.
In terms of how did you find directing the cast? Especially, there are so many emotionally charged scenes, and definitely, Susan, is something I want to talk to you about because there's so much internal stuff going on. How was it leading the cast in sort of achieving those sorts of really profound, moving scenes, but so seamlessly?
It wasn't
from our side. From our side.
I can't remember. You're better off answering that question. It was it was a challenge, right? Was it? Yeah. I think it was a challenge. And yeah, go for it.
Yeah, Elizabeth, can you speak to some of that, and then Susan?
Yeah, I think it was really a challenge for Rungano to direct certain scenes, especially if you saw the aunties, like there was a lot of people on set with different emotions. But yeah, at least I thank God that we did it. Yeah, we tried our best. We did it.
Just to add to that, I mean, I think she's not going to say this, but she was incredible at leading us. Is one thing, is that she just knew how to kind of speak to everyone individually and trusted us and gave us the respect and the space to kind of get creative and find the places we need to get to within the film. So it was just really, that trust was really important, wasn't it, for all of us? Because even when we had rehearsals with Rungano, which were really important for us and quick, yeah, it was just moments where we discovered certain little bits about, we'd do improv and we'd discover certain things about our own characters and how we'd react, and we'd be like, oh, that's, yeah, she'd be like, oh, I love that, let's keep that. Or she'd be like, no, let's not, that's a bit much. Like, so it would be, so it was just, yeah, we kind of, yeah, and we kind of, yeah, we'd kind of find things within the rehearsals and take them with us. And yeah, no, it was wonderful being led by you. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad you answered those questions, because I found it, in my memory, they were like, it was just unyielding and a bit chaotic. No?
That was the big, with all the aunties was tough.
It was
because they're very big characters. Yes, each and every one of them, in real life and on screen.
Yeah.
So certain scenes, there would be discussions about, well, that doesn't happen like this. Or, well, in my tribe, it doesn't. So, and then it would be another whole research session for Rungano. And we learned so much. Well, I did. I know Elizabeth's more immersed in the culture daily than I am. But there were so many things that I learned from these moments of people speaking up about certain things that they wouldn't do in the ritual of the funeral and stuff like that. So it was really fascinating for me.
Yeah, the hardest is the last scene, because that one was really, you both weren't in that scene, and that was the most difficult one, because it's the one we dedicate the most. Well, we had very little rehearsal, but as much as we did, we dedicate, because it kept changing. Because I use a lot of improvisation and devising, and so I start off with a script and I tell them the intention, and everyone comes up, because I just want naturalistic acting. So they come up with their own dialogue, and we sort of hone it in, and then we say what's working, what's not working, and what needs to serve the story, and then we sort of divide by beats, all this stuff. So the last scene was the worst, because people were getting very emotionally charged. At one point we had to break up fights. It was so crazy, and every time I said, guys, you can't touch each other. You can't shout at each other. You can't. And they started calling each other names, and then people taking it personally. So I had to bring in a consultant. It was getting wild. Like, I had to bring a consultant to tell them what acting is, and like the difference. I had to bring Mrs. Kapwepo. She was telling them what acting is, what they have to do, and the idea of getting to characters. And I think because she spoke to them, and my Bemba is not very good, she spoke to them in Bemba and some of them in Nyanja, so they understood. Because you get usually non-professional actors, so it's the first time they're doing this, but they were really taking it personally. And I'd go, why do you always get into fight? Why is this happening? I couldn't understand it, and they were really immersed that way. So the last scene we shot, it was a nightmare. We shot over 2 days, and each time we knew, and it never was. They never not took it personally. So each time we reached a beat where we thought, okay, that this is when it always kicks off. We go, stop. Okay, now we're going to reset the camera and stuff like that. So they would get there, and then so that fight you see at the end is kind of real. They do get really physical with each other, and it always happened that way. So yeah, we just found a way of managing it.
That last scene it really sums up sort of the injustice, the nuance, the complexity of the entire film and in the world that these women live in. I thought it was really powerful. It's really great to learn that there was some authenticity to it in terms of almost method acting, I guess.
They were really went method. That's a good way of putting it. It was unreal, yeah.
But yeah, it was very, very powerful. Actually, while we were sitting here, we all went silent. I don't think you could hear a pin drop. Susan, to you, this was your first film role? First lead film role? Like, just absolutely amazing, absolutely insane performance, incredible. I would love to know, what were your initial thoughts when you read the script? And how did you prepare? We know that you had a bit of rehearsal time, but how did you prepare to then be on set and to deliver the phenomenal performance that you did?
Wow, thank you so much for that compliment. Thank you. I didn't get a script initially because Rungano didn't give it to me until I was locked in. She's very secretive.
And you weren't supposed to have it, actually.
Because
you weren't supposed to have it at all.
No, you gave it to me like last minute. I think just before I got the plane. I was reading it in the plane.
You were not supposed to have it in the plane.
So you were casted and then got the script.
And I wasn't even supposed to have it on the flight.
Oh, okay.
On the flight. Yeah.
So many NDAs were broken.
No. So I got I think because the whole process but basically I got told about the audition process and the interview and who was involved in the project. Rungano and Isabella Adofin was casting it, and I obviously looked them both up, and then I saw I'm Not a Witch, and I was like, I need to be in this film. Like, I needed to just be in it. I'd never seen my culture portrayed in that way and just filmed in that. The cinematography was incredible. Like, it was just so beautifully shot, and the representation, and it just felt like I just was dying to be a part of this project with Rungano, and just to go back. It was filming in Zambia. It was in Bemba. I was like, this is like, if anybody told me this would happen, I literally would be like, yeah. And then they'd be like, oh, you'll go to Cannes too. Yeah. But it was just this whole process. But to answer your question, sorry, I go on a bit. But in the preparation of it, after I eventually got the script, but prior to that, we'd obviously spoken, and I did improv, was part of my audition process with the aunties. I got thrown in the deep end there. I then got to know a little bit more about, Rungano would explain what the scene was about, and then the script came, so I knew more about the project in full. And even then, I think I was just drawn to the fact that it just felt like a really important story to be told, and it needed to be told, not just because it's set in Zambia, and culturally it was something that I would be proud to get out to the world myself, but it was more that it's a universal topic, isn't it? And it just felt like I was just so honored to be a part of something that was really important to tell. And it kind of did feel, I remember when I was reading it in the plane, it did dawn on me that it's a heavy thing to carry, to be lead of something, of a project like this, just because it's such an important story to tell, and I didn't want to get there and not be able to tell it right, or in the way Rungano envisioned the story being told. And But yeah, when we got there and did the improv, and I just really immersed myself in the culture and really just let the culture affect me. And because that was really important for Shula to be, surrounded by her family members, the culture. And then, prior to that, I'd also spoken to my sister. I have two sisters who still live in Zambia, and my grandma, just to kind of get their perspective on it. Because I guess Shula would be the age that my younger sister is. So, that's kind of how between that and some method, we got there.
I mean, it's fascinating hearing about the process of the film, because so much of it, the performance in every scene is just astonishing. And knowing how you got there, it totally makes sense, sort of where the self-actualization of every scene. And a huge responsibility as a lead, especially with the themes and sensitivity. And also just I think one of the things that I took from the film, it's just deeply layered. Yes, it's about, a place in Zambia. It's also about these characters and this culture, but there are so many things on top of which, I think in some of my research, you spoke about silence. One of the themes in the film being silence, and how dangerous that is. Could you speak a bit more about that?
Yeah, I think silence does, to me, I just think it does weird things to people. It can, when you internalize things, I feel it changes you, and it in turn can change the people around you and how people react to you and how people see you, and even down to the aura you project to the people around you. So personally, myself, Susan, I don't tend to internalize, so it's really interesting for why is she nodding?
There's a lot of there were some intense close-ups where I just thought, wow, this is a fantastic performance. She knows every inch of her face. This is incredible.
In all honesty, I don't. I literally just fully immersed myself. I was just like, this is Shula, like, love it or leave it, like, this is it. But no, I don't. Susan doesn't internalize. You stop it, girl. You too. I don't. You could tell, yes, I talk a lot, not like Shula, but it was just really, for me, the reason why I taught myself in my life, later on in life, actually, I used to internalize, is that I just noticed a lot of people around me you get heavier the more you carry by yourself. And it's too heavy. Like, eventually something's going to break, right? If you keep loading it's going to break. So with generations of trauma, of the same repeating these cycles, there has to be a point where someone has to stand up and say, you know what, this isn't right. Whether that being brave and that courage to stand up comes from you seeing, the people around you, and then you suddenly see your reflection in those people, which is kind of what I felt Shula was finding her journey through. Or you just have a young sibling or a really young member of the family that you want to protect with all your life, and suddenly that gives you the courage. Whatever it is, I just think it's really important to find the time and space to allow yourself to be brave and find your voice in a way, So I think and the film does that. It, in the end, through the Guinea Fowl, the alarm is sound. The alarm has been sounded, and it rings through, and hopefully more people will start to then speak up, and it becomes contagious, hopefully.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah.
But also, sorry, testament to you, what I want to say is she didn't have a lot of rehearsal. She came in, you flew in like 3 days before we shot. She's like, it's 2 hours rehearsal. We were really thrown into that. She was thrown into it. And so that's what makes her impressive. And also Susan is really like an anti-Shula, because she's so open. And when I first met her, I said, I saw your interview actually, and that was one of my fears. I said, but she's so open. So we're going to have to like crush that somehow. Because she's an open book. What you see is what you get, and she's never closed off at all. And that was the hardest hardest journey that she had to take was go against her natural instinct. So and not so that is a testament to how much work she put in, because she was really thrown in. And we started off with a very difficult scene, if I remember, at the beginning, and then and we were also trying to get to know each other, and it was a set of. So you did a great job. She did a wonderful
and
job.
Actually, when you walked into the cinema, I didn't even recognise. I just smiled. I said hello because you were, and just because it was a very polite thing to do. But I and then when I overheard, oh, this is Susan, I was like, from the film, like I just watched the film last week.
I went, hi.
Yeah, but it is an absolutely, having spent a few minutes with you before the screening, it is a sort of a very radical transformation as well. And we think of actors doing transformations and doing these like intense workouts and intense diets and a real sort of a real physical change, but you really do see there is a definite line between you and the character, which is a testament to your craft. Elizabeth, I have to say you remind me so much of my own cousin. At least your character and performance, it was such a warm portrayal of a cousin and love. Your character plays such an important role in the film, and I should congratulate you as well, because you've just been nominated for a BIFA Award for Supporting Actress, so congratulations.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us as well, because I believe you've just recently got off a plane as well, right? You've just
sure. 3 days past.
3 days past. Well, thank you so much for being with us. When you received the script, and I know I don't know how soon you received the script, or how much time, what the timeline was between you receiving the script and being on set. What was your process in preparing?
To be honest with you, I not at any point did I receive the script.
Okay.
Normally they're not supposed to get script. They're not. And just for the finances.
I'm gonna remember that for the next interview.
So I used to ask myself for the time that, is it that this director doesn't trust me because I'm Zambian, I'm from here? Does she think I'm gonna sell her story or something? I never received the script. I remember she gave it to me once, but it was just this particular scene that we were supposed to do. So,
and in doing that, how did you prepare? What was when you were on set, without knowing where your character was going and where it was coming? How did you sort of stay in that scene and that moment?
So what I did was to listen more to the director, since I never had the script. The best I did was to do whatever it is that she asked me to do.
That's incredible. Your character and performance is so animated, and it has so much energy. Where do you find that? Where is it in your craft, in your toolbox, that you managed to get up and be so honestly so captivating, but also so serious in those moments as well when you're joking? Because when we're watching your screen, we're not seeing it, your performance is, someone who's under the influence, but it's so laid and there's so much tension. Where does that come from?
First and foremost, never at any point did I come to set intoxicated. I was 100% sober. I want to clarify. So for me, I think it's a craft, and what really made me switch from being this funny drunkard and to being this emotionally drained being was the time we were shooting the movie. We had the funeral. We just buried a close member of the family. So the things that I saw on set, they just recently happened back home. So that helped me build the emotions. And to bring out the character. And the funny part, because we really had fun on set. You see all sorts of crazy people around that make you laugh. Would have lunch, dinner together. So when the time to shoot those crazy scenes, I was ready. I gave it my whole, because everybody on set was kind. The crew, my fellow cast, and all thanks to Susan here. She was really supportive, and the directing, the Rungano's way of directing. I mean, she made things really, really easy for me because she took time to talk to me. Yeah, she took time to make me understand what I was there to do, and I'm really grateful to these ladies. They really helped me bring the best out of my character.
Thank you. And final question to Rungano before we move on to audience. Now that the film is done, I believe the edit was just finished this year. Is that correct? How do you feel now that it's been released? What has been the overall response? Has there been anything that shocked you or surprised you?
No, because I tend to sort of put myself in a cave when it's released somehow, because I just don't want to. I like to have a distance. So, and I was editing for a long period of time, so I usually try and find a way of learning what kind of film I've done after. I just need a few beats to get myself to get so. And then I think you find out eventually what kind of film. I think time is the best and distance. So, I will know maybe next year or the year after that. I don't know. So you get an idea of what it is, I guess, because if you're nominated for it, we're like, oh, someone recognized it. But I always come from it of like not expecting anything and then being pleasantly surprised if that stuff happens. But also sometimes you get acclaim for different reasons. It could be to do with the film, it could be with the subject of the film, it could be just a timing thing also. So you never really know until you're out of that sort of little moment, and then you can see what it is. So it's complicated.
Congratulations for all the awards and nominations. It's done phenomenally well. Handing it over to the audience. We have a roaming mic, so if you just like to, in school fashion, just raise your hands and we'll get to you.
Thank you. First and foremost, thank you very much for coming. It's been really, really nice to see such a great film. I have two questions, actually. The first one is, what would you hope, I forgot your name, Rungano. What would you hope audiences to take away from the film? And for the two actresses, what was your favorite scene or even line within the film?
No, for me, the film is quite personal, and I'm always questioning myself why I'm doing certain things, and this one I had a lot of questions about it. And in terms of what I want people to get out of it, it was a very difficult thing to say that, because it's kind of a dark film, and it's still a question I'm trying to answer myself, I have to be honest. I do that. I have some kind of existential crisis every time I make a film. Like, but why am I making films? And can I make another one? And what does this all mean? I think my intent, I don't approach films that way in terms of intention. It's just I have something to express, and then I'm interested to see what other people get out of it. And but I know when I was editing it, I wanted to have this feeling of something a bit more hopeful, which when I'd originally started writing, it wasn't that case. So it changed when I was filming it, changed when I was editing it. So I definitely remember having that intention. There's an ambiguity towards the ending, but I did want it to be somewhat more positive, and so we geared it that way a little bit more. But it did end on a more bleaker note. So, yeah.
I thought you'd take it so I could have a little think. No, I know what. Well, there was one scene that she's so funny. Like, it's really hard to not laugh at Elizabeth, and she's just so talented. And like you said yesterday, the one-liners and I don't know where it all comes from, but it's just incredible to work with her. There was one scene when we're in the car and she's looking for something to cover the body with, which is just, writing this scene, first of all, I don't know how that popped into your head. Another incredible thing. Yeah. And when she's doing that scene and when you stick the stuff on me, I think in my head, when I watch it, I can see myself. I think you just cut the edit right when I'm about
when
to.
you laugh.
Yes,
It's
I can
true.
see it because I know myself. I'm literally just about to crack up. Like I could not get through that scene without laughing. Like it's just the way she was. Oh, I found something. But like that was one of my favorite scenes to film. Although actually difficult to try not to laugh at you, but to be angry at you in that scene. But it was, yeah, I love that. And another scene that I really, really loved was, which was really tough emotionally, I think, was when the aunties came into the pantry in our little safe haven, and they, I have goosebumps thinking about it, and they spoke to us, and then they started to sing that. I mean, literally, no. And that whole scene was, it was so powerful, and it was almost like there was a presence in the room with their voices, and it was just so spiritual. And I think that's one of the scenes that would stay with me emotionally. Like I can still feel what it felt like to be in that room when they started to sing, just after them giving us that love and that support, and then the song came in, and it was just, it was so powerful. Yeah, those are the two scenes for me.
I think that definitely came across in the scene, in the viewing of it as well. Yeah.
Heavy.
Yeah, that's also one of my favorite scenes, and it came as a surprise. I actually didn't prepare for that scene. I didn't even know I would shed tears, I would cry, because the way the aunties came in, that's exactly the way my mom talks to me after she scolds me. Like, there's certain times I would do something wrong and she doesn't like it. She would shout, say all sorts of things, and then there are times she would realize to say, I wasn't supposed to speak to her like that. And then the tone the aunties used in that scene, it really touched me. I felt the love that I've never felt my whole life. So yeah, that was one of my favorite scenes. And the scene where I came to knock on the window. Yeah.
Brilliant. Any other questions? Yeah, have we got some hands?
Hi. I wanted to thank you as well, to be honest, because it was an amazing film that I will have to watch again and again. That's how layered it is. I wanted to ask if, it is your second narrative film, but I was wondering if narrative was always going to be the way, because there are so many ways that directors can say things. And obviously when it comes from a place of wanting to talk about home, or a version of home or a version of family, whether narrative will kind of always be and do something different than what a documentary or a visual essay, for example, could ever potentially do.
That's a good question. I think it's maybe more a control thing, I imagine. And also I really admire documentary filmmakers. I think the way they look at when it's done really well, I think it's just hard to do it really well somehow. I don't know why, because I feel like they just have a different set of skills that I don't know if I have. They're really, and I've seen people going in places that I always question how they're allowed to go into those spaces. Because a documentary is also very different. And a documentary filmmaker told me this. It's about not just about the subject, but it's also about the subject of how that person's filmed. And that relationship between the filmmaker and the subject. So, and knowing that and approaching it that way. So for me, I think it's more, I like to, this one I found difficult, but normally, because I think it's a bit too personal, I feel. Normally I like places where I can build stuff onto it, because I come with 100 million ideas and I just want to sort of funnel them into somewhere. And I think if I was doing a documentary, I'd probably found that really difficult, because then somebody else is in control of that narrative, and I would find it. I think so. I thrive the most when I'm allowed to put something on something and then sort of let it run and then go into different spaces. Yeah. So So yeah, I think narrative is the only, for now. I might change my mind one day, yeah.
Thank you. Other hands? Oh, we must give it to number 5.
How old were you when you filmed this?
Shall we lie? I was 19. I was 19 when I filmed this, plus a few years. I was much older than you, for sure. Yes. Thank you.
Great question.
Thank you. That was a lovely question. One more question. Did you say a gentleman?
The gentleman there.
Thank you.
Hi, Rungano, Susan, and Elizabeth. Thank you for your film. I had a question about the language. Actually, I was because I understand parts of it were in English and a large part of it was in Bemba, if I'm not wrong. And I was curious about whether in writing the screenplay, how much of it was written in English and how much of it was Bemba and how much was left to the actors to improvise. Because I think, especially for some characters like Shula, I felt that it was quite significant to the character that, that they're speaking in both English and Bemba, whereas other characters would speak almost entirely in Bemba. So I was hoping to get some insight into maybe how language is used to characterize the characters, maybe, and its significance.
I let them lead. I knew it was going to be in Bemba just because I really wanted, again, something more personal. And I thought in my first film, it was also Nyanja, and I don't speak Nyanja at all. I don't understand it. So I needed this one to be Bemba just because it was speaking about family and a certain ritual I understand that's done by Bemba culture specifically. So that was the only thing I said, they have to be able to speak Bemba. I said, I'm open to other languages. And actually the widow didn't speak. She spoke a different language and I used that. So she spoke Nyanja and I thought, okay, I can use that to distance her from this family. So it comes from them. When I do workshops, I tell them to speak in whatever language they want. So there was also an issue with that language, by the way, about shooting in English. So originally, I think the finances were more than wondering. Well, there was something about it, maybe possibility of it being shot in English. And by then I'd sort of workshopped it and auditioned. I'd gone through a couple of months of doing it. And what I found is, because I want to remember this, I said, speak in whatever language you feel comfortable. I know I'm speaking English, but I can understand mostly what you're saying, so don't feel the need. Just speak in whatever you feel comfortable, right? And so I picked people according to the dynamics. So I wanted to make it as naturalistic as it is to my experience, at least, of living in Zambia. Most people flip between different languages, and I just didn't want them to be limited by English. So when there was a point of English coming up, I thought, but we haven't got actors that speak English as their main language. It was really, I think you do, but it's different. The other ones, I mean, everybody, even when they're offset, they're all spoken different languages. It's just, so I allow them, it's them that gives me the language. So, but I write in English because I have to finance the film. So they're not going to understand Bemba unless there's Bemba finances. I'm like, no, I have to write in English. And then the dialogue is mostly, all this dialogue, by the way, is theirs. It's not me. I only inject a few things. So they dictate how it's going to come out and how they interact with each other. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Again, thank you so much to our audience for staying for the Q&A. Thank you guys for being here. And again, masterpiece of a film. Can we get one more round of applause? Thank you.